Weever, hi, finally caught up with you.
I know. Good morning, Grace. Good morning, St. Martin.
You were actually my last, no, you weren't the last, but on the Saturday.
Saturday, yes.
Yeah.
That Saturday was a really unexpected whirlwind of 4 interviews, including one in Spanish, and I'm like,
Really?
forgive me for my, yo puedo hablar en español un poquito, pero,
Right.
but it was so, because, it's so tiring to actually do interviews, to just and to do 4 back to back.
You're not asking me that.
I know. It's rhetorical. Yes, it's. I didn't know how I did it that day. 4, and they were pretty much 1 hour long. And it was fun. And I was like, oh my god, I did 4 interviews in one day. Woo! Like, it was really invigorating and energizing, but it was also like overwhelming. As in, did I just do this? And they all kind of came up. Like, there was 2 of those that came up unexpectedly. So, I was happy to have survived it all and talk sense as I normally do.
Brain drain at
Yes.
the same time too. So you imagine me sitting here for over about almost 2 months, just sitting here interviewing people, interviewing candidates every day. Yeah.
But also just staying, I don't know, I don't envy you, and I actually admire you, because to be able to do that with all the amount of candidates that we have, I know that you don't see all 100 plus, but still, it's a lot. It's a lot of information coming in.
Yeah. Let's talk about the election results. Congratulations.
Thank you.
690. You had some of your stomping grounds. If I look here, John Larmony Center, 37. Polling station number.
It'll be Sundial, usually Simpson Bay, John Larmony, Saunders.
Yeah. Right. NIPA, actually, you had 65.
Yes,
here.
Saunders and Cahill. Correct.
Saunders and Cahill.
Saunders is where the Mac School is.
But the Methodist Target Center. Wow. Okay. Yeah. What is it about, Ludi? Because actually you come from a pretty large family with close family ties, of course, but we're talking about 690 people here that went out and cast their votes on you. What is it about, Ludi, that these people like so much?
So I've been explaining people a lot from the day one when I started in politics. The first time around, I knew exactly, if I had to look at what my cousin did before, what my dad did before, since we have this new 2010, this new country within the kingdom set up with parliament. I knew that no matter what, like I could really rely on, if I went out, to the core team of somewhere between 300 to 330. And when I ran the first time, it was a very last minute decision. And a lot of my friends and family said, we can't vote for you on the party that you're with. I have to respect that from them. So the minute that I changed that, where I affiliated myself, that already had a boost, automatically had a boost, because the persons that said no initially because of where I was said, yes, we're coming behind you. But then if you look at my change, that's why I keep telling people I have 4 years experience in politics. I have about 2 years as a minister and 2 years in parliament. What happened in parliament is I became very vocal. I became even more confident. I had already seen what was happening within government from a ministerial level. I became very confident, especially when you felt this pressure that you always had to vote along party lines in parliament. Right? Even though I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. If I don't agree with this, I'm not going to vote on that, because it is voting my conscience. And then I became very popular when I called it as I saw it. So what connected me with new listeners, with new voters, was the fact that I went out and I said, if we could stop thieving for 1 year, that made me very popular. It went viral. When I traveled, I remember when I traveled to this women's conference in St. Lucia last year in October, some people there from Bahamas and another island talked to me, and they said, I saw this politician somewhere that stood up, and I said, what? Tell me more. And then I looked up the video, and he said, yes, that's the one I saw. So it went viral in the Caribbean because it was something bold coming from a politician, coming from a representative in government. And this is what literally boosted me even more in the parliament. The parliament sphere, as in with the population, because they said, wow, I don't know who this person is, but I like what she said. And then when we came to the election in January, from between then and now, I have people who are passing me on the road as I'm walking alongside the road, turning down their window and saying, "Hey, stop thieving, stop thieving!" Like because it resonated, and they still did it this time around. Now, if people are saying, "Oh, it's just a message," you have to connect with the population some way. And what I have done the entire time that I have been in Parliament was been consistent with what I know. With certain backgrounds, what I could have learned in 4 years, for instance, with the whole setup of ministries, with our budgeting, with how Parliament is. So I'm very consistent whenever you hear me talk. I don't grandstand. I don't bark. I am very firm with my assessment of the topics that are being discussed at the time in Parliament, and I am also very critical and very, very much advisory giving to the ministers when they come in. So people will say, "Oh, Ludi's always she's always coming at you from this finance side, economic side," because yes, it is my background. But I'm also looking at the big picture of the country, of where I stand with certain topics, of what I want to see St. Martin look like in the future. I know I do not want a New York in St. Martin in the future. I know I do not want a Miami in St. Martin in the future. And sometimes, other people that are very, very, very wealthy will want to change our island layout, and quite frankly, the entire island collectively has to make a decision on what do you want your island to look like. I know what my island is. I know why people came here. We always talk about sea, sun, sand, and this is something that I've been very vocal about protecting. I don't want us to go back into the 1970s, but I want us to remember that people have the option of Miami. People have the option of New York. I don't think that the New York skyline with high rises is the future outlook for St. Martin to change our entire coastline, to change our, whether you're talking about down towards the lower lands area, or if you're talking about town. I understand we maybe go up a little bit, but not to the point where I have skyscrapers in a hurricane belt, and basically, that's pretty much what I want to say in terms of my sort of consistency in Parliament. And one of the concerns and challenges that any parliamentarian will have is to remain relevant while in Parliament, to stay connected with the community while in Parliament, to champion certain changes or little amendments, legislation, that sort of thing from Parliament that will affect change and directly affect people's lives. And that is one of the things I hope we get to this morning in terms of like the public perception of our elections and what they're electing, what they're voting for when they go out. So
we've seen a huge change though in the where the public when the electorate actually were concerns of going out to vote, that some of the candidates who actually had high votes in the numbers were very high in January, and then you turn around now that basically that has seen a whole change where the leader, I'll just throw this out as an example, where the leader of the National Alliance actually did not make it to actually get reelected. You're very strong-minded.
Yeah,
You're a very strong-minded person. So let me just ask you, how does your strong-mindedness, I should say, resonate with your party platform?
So, I think not just with my party, in general.
In general,
right, in the political sphere.
In the political sphere, right.
This is what I have learned. In 4 years, I have learned that people don't like outliers. People don't like, rebels per se, but I think you need some kind of rebels to change the world when you're changing it for good. And what I have seen, and I'm glad you brought up the election results and the message. What I can say from the election results in January is that St. Martin is not sleeping. St. Martiners went out, voters went out, and they consistently gave us the same results from January in August. So you had the same top three voters, for instance, like it was Dr. Marcelina, MP Otley,
the parties,
Prime Minister,
the
and then me.
Right.
And so what you see is there is consistency with what they are going towards. And then they sent us. The biggest concern this election was the fact that we were going back to election 7 months later. And that is the fear that happened, as in, they might be so upset that they don't want to go out and vote. But they still went out and vote, And they gave you the resounding message. And they said,
Right.
if you continue to play with our government, if you continue to play with our stability, if you continue to play with our choices, we will teach you a lesson. And boy, did we get a lesson this August. Because this is just factual that I'm stating. You know, the people that were involved with the instability were punished. You saw it significantly in the numbers. And
you're referring to the Mingret situation also here?
Well, this one as well, but I'm referring to the results of the two leading parties well, not leading necessarily in numbers, the two parties that were in for the 2020 to 2024 term. They sent us a message in January about it when you saw a decrease. And they sent you an additional message, as in, you didn't listen to us the first time around in January? Well, we're going to leave you know again this time. And they sent the same thing out, which is why you saw the trend that I picked up is that they were very unhappy with what was happening with the National Alliance, and you saw all of their numbers dipped. That's what happened. They were very unhappy with whatever was happening, wishy-washy, with how people were getting votes via policies that were done with permits. That was the assessment and the theory. You saw it in the results of persons within the UP party. And so what happens is, you always know that when you have a sitting government, they normally go up in votes because they're doing the work, the day-to-day work. But what you saw in the sitting government that went into an election in January is their votes dipped down, which was a message from the public saying, we don't think you're doing such a good job, honey. And then in August, they say, you didn't believe us the first time? We told you weren't doing a good job. So give the people a chance. Give the other people a chance. And then that is my message. Give the other people a chance to represent you, and to represent you for a long time, meaning the full term of 4 years, because you know what they're going to do. If you don't let them do that, you're going to get exactly what you did in August again. But again, you cannot say that the numbers are all over the places for the majority of the candidates, because they punished some of the candidates, so they went down, but they kept consistency in who they would go after. We don't vote for parties, we vote for individuals.
Right.
And the result was what you saw. And who surprised me even more was Dr. Versalina.
Yeah.
I said, whoa. I was like, wait, let's just see what's happening here. Because I didn't really, there was one person, when I went out in the field, I consistently got a message from new people, new voters, because I had to go to a whole different group of people this time around. And including my regulars from January, but I also had to go out further. And the recurring theme that I saw was people deciding between me and another candidate. And I have to be very honest about it, because I told that candidate's spouse when I saw her, and I said, people are saying, I was considering you, but then I was also considering Mr. York, Darrell York. And I said, oh, wait, I need to figure out why the people are saying this. And that's the fun that I like when I have to go do an analysis of the numbers. Why are you, what is it about a candidate that attracts you? And that was my feedback from my new voters. And then I wasn't surprised with his numbers, because when I'm going out, people are deciding between me and another candidate from a different party. And I said,
and they come out and they say that to you.
Yeah, they're very
openly, right?
Very openly, and this is what I like, because when I go to talk to people, they feel comfortable enough with me, and I like that honesty, because it's the honesty that I got from people the first time I ran in 2020, saying, we love you, but we're not going to vote for you on your party. And then this time they were like, yeah, I know you. I heard about you. I went to watch some stuff from you, and I'm deciding between you and this person. And so that is my opportunity then to say, hey, well, can you give me a little bit more insight as to why you were looking at those two candidates, meaning myself included.
Right.
But it's what I can say, and then I'm going to send this out, if they're listening to this live, I will say that, St. Martin, we hear you, and thank you for the message that you sent. And, we appreciate all of you going out to vote. I appreciate all of you going out to vote. And you sent a message loud and clear. And now with that message, we just have to come through and follow through for you. And every politician should now be reminded that you think they're sleeping? You think that they can be Mama Guide? St. Martin listening and watching every single thing we're doing. So we need to do the work for them and give back to them.
What is it about, you said the Prime Minister surprised you? What is it about him that actually surprised you?
Which one?
The Prime Minister. You said it,
Oh,
he
because
surprised you.
how significant the increase in votes were, but he's also the Prime Minister.
Oh, despite
And-
the backlash he's been receiving,
Correct.
also for the measures that he took. Yeah.
Absolutely, which meant that something of his measures resonated with the people. And what was impressive of it, and let us all give Jack his jacket when we have to, is the fact that he is the only candidate that outright earned his seat.
Yes, that is true.
He is the only candidate. I have not seen that in my tenure of being in government since 2020. I believe the last time I saw that, I think maybe it was like 2016, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was around 2016 where I saw a candidate outright earning their vote. So that's what I remembered. I recognized, like, whoa, someone broke 1,000, and then whoa, someone actually earned their seat. And then of course the public perception is people were maybe thinking it's negative, but weren't you surprised by the results?
Right. Do you believe that the PSA from the prosecutor's office also played a major role in the where vote buying is concerned?
Sorry?
In this? Do you believe that the public prosecutor put out this PSA, this public service announcement about vote buying, that kind of swayed the people out there from, hey, listen, I don't think I want to get caught up in this, from actually getting involved in vote buying?
But I believe that the same message was sent in January as well, especially when you know that we were entering into a new dynamic of voting where the curtain came down.
Yeah, but it wasn't out in January in a PSA that was being
Okay.
aired on the radio. And
yes.
that's what I'm saying. So you kept hearing
Correct.
it over and over and
Correct.
over all the time.
And you kept getting the messages too, like you saw people reposting it, resharing it on social media or
Exactly,
WhatsApp.
exactly.
That may have very well sent a signal to it, but also the message that I took basically from what happened in this, let's look at it the last year. It is very disheartening. I think that we have I know it's disheartening when you see that you have representatives that end up being questioned. So they're pulled into the police office, a police building, to be questioned for some sort of discrepancy
Vote buying.
or fraudulent kind of behavior. And what I really will not tolerate, even though I don't have a choice in that because I don't own the Parliament building, I just work in the Parliament building, but it's very embarrassing when you have to read that they go into the Parliament building to search offices. And this is where I want us to shy away from and move away from. And I don't know if you remember that there was an interview I did with you. It may have been in December, January, leading up to the January election, where I said, if you go around and you look at all the posters, you will see how many people have either been investigated, currently under investigation,
You
and I
did.
said, who are linked with something, who are like, so it was who were arrested, who were linked to something, and it was about 14 persons. And this is not sending a good message to St. Martin. And, that is my assessment, but I also believe that, I'm seeing something that the public is seeing very obviously, as in, do we want to build back trust in our representatives? Do we want to bring back dignity to our elected offices? And that's what we have to fight for. That's what we have to move
Absolutely,
to. And the
right.
fact that you have so many people that had investigations or were arrested for some discrepancy related to elections, it also basically tells you that we need to work for the people, this is why things weren't done before. People were doing things in a very selfish reason, in a very corrupt way, very, very corrupt manner, in specific ministries. And you basically have some business people that think that because they're linked with persons that they can do whatever they want, kind of like the front page of the paper today, of they can do whatever they want because of who they know. And this sort of mistrust or distrust that you had with your government is what we're removing, thanks to the voters who are awake and who are saying, no, we want someone that's going to make us feel safe. We want people that are going to protect us. We want people that are going to now focus on being there for us, fixing the things that they have been talking about for years. And the reason that they haven't been doing it for years is because they have been sorting themselves out. They've been looking out only for themselves and only for their friends. And this is what is resonating with the public now, and what they're seeing in the representatives that they're getting. And this is why people were washed out this election around.
It's very important. It's very important. But one of the other things is that we're looking. We're basically talking we're hearing this actually from the leaders of the various political parties, especially the leader of the Democratic Party, where she is actually. I just had a brain freeze there. Anyhow, so let me get back to
something related to.
No.
Oh.
I know, yeah, but I wanted to say something else, but let me get back to this. So, the leader of the Democratic Party, who actually speaks out every time she gets the opportunity about electoral reform. I put it to one of the members of Parliament yesterday, and we keep talking about it every time. But how important is it for us to get to that point now where that is concerned?
We had a meeting on Wednesday. It was a closed door meeting.
Oh, you did?
We did, and it was about select. So a bid went out to firms that could assist the Parliament with this whole electoral reform process. And this is very important that we are discussing it because of the fact that there is this perception in St. Martin politics that when we go out for elections, that we are electing ministers. And we're not electing ministers, we are electing 15 members of Parliament. Now, there is this traditional sense of when we are electing our parliamentarians, the ones with the highest votes will go into ministries, or the ones with the highest votes can do what they want. That is the trend has been that the ones with the highest votes have a little bit more influence and sway into where things would go. But if you are smart, you will put the strongest person in a ministry. If you are smart, you will put the person with knowledge and experience of management and business sense and that ministry in that position. What we have struggled with in St. Martin is that you have ministers or politicians that go into ministries, or not politicians that are placed in ministries that don't know anything about it, that don't know they don't know one iota about it. And then you wonder why we struggle as a country to have proper changes in each ministry. And this is what we have to move away from. You're asking me about electoral reform. Part of that electoral reform is also educating the public on what actually happens now, because the public is thinking that they're voting for Ludi to be the minister of something, and that is not the right thing to make them believe. Electoral reform, I had a former minister tell me, y'all might want to consider having an election for ministers, since it causes so much fights in parties, since it causes so much arguments in parties, because you think because you have this amount of votes that you can do what you want and you're entitled to something. Right. This is not about entitlement. You choose the right person for the ministry. For the job. You choose the person with the strength for the ministry, and then the people will start believing you that they actually know what they're doing. So they're putting the right person in the right place.
So was it ever considered to actually put you into the ministry of roaming?
So the dialogue is ongoing. There is no conclusion when it comes to that. But what I can say, for instance, is last week, Thursday, the 4 party leaders had that signing, the commitment to work together, and then they publicly stated where the portfolios would go. And given that division, I had a suggestion as to who I think is the strongest candidate for the Ministry of Education, which I also shared.
And who was that?
I hope I don't put my foot in the mouth. My suggestion was Solange Ludmila Duncan. I have to be very honest about that. The party has really strong candidates in education. It is education is very, very high in the party. But I am a firm believer that you put the strongest candidates in the position, in the place where they will have the best impact and have that knowledge. And if you keep this process, this way of working about you, then you can never disappoint the people.
So how far are you with those talks now, where the Minister of Education is concerned?
Nothing.
Nothing is.
Well, whether you're talking about the Ministry of Army or the Ministry of Education, nothing is set in stone.
Okay.
And what you will have is you will have a lot of assumptions being made. You will have a lot of stories being planted, seeds being planted, so that we can have this melee and this zizani and this redo. And the truth of the matter is, the Party for Progress has been allocated 2 portfolios, which is very incredible that we have 2 portfolios. Those portfolios are RAMI, which is infrastructure, environment, housing, and then we have the Ministry of Education. And every single ministry in our country needs so much help. But what I want to say to everyone listening in as well is that just because a party is allocated a ministry doesn't mean they care less about another. This is a negotiation. A party didn't get an outright majority so that they could take all 7 portfolios and divide it up amongst the best candidates or the best persons. So I don't want people to feel offended because we weren't allocated justice. I don't want people to feel offended because we weren't allocated finance. I don't want them. Yes, I don't want them to be offended for that, because you have to remember that this is a negotiation amongst the ruling parties, or what we call the coalition parties that made the majority in Parliament, and be very patient with that process, and I will always continue to say that be very critical and observe who the persons are that are going to go in, how the decision making was done, so that you can see that people are putting the right persons in the right places for their strengths. And what I can say very, very, very frankly on air is that I will never be so frontish and so arrogant to take something that I can't add my best, my strengths to. I would never do that. I will always say, I think this is the best person for this. If we want to see instant work the minute the person is sworn in, because I do not believe that you're sworn in as a minister and to learn on the job. Right now, our country is in a critical position, a critical state where we not only need the stability that everyone preaches about, we need maturity. We need to have the right persons there that can hit the ground running on time and say, hey, I've been doing this for a while. I'm good here. I know this. I have a strong team with me that comes hopefully with civil service experience, or you have a great lawyer that is versed in legislative law, because you have to write a lot of that, a lot of amendments. You have to write a lot of advices. And if they come from the ministry, it's even better. If they have experience of government before and maybe retired, even better. Not much has changed in all these years of St. Martin. And when you look at a lot of the legislation too, this is why you need people with experience. You can't take a whole team of new people who have never been in the civil service and think that you're going to hit the ground running in your ministry. So you have to be mature. You have to be practical. Just know that you will get hardly any sleep, because I think my hairline went back a lot when I was minister, because you're working for the people. It's a 24/7 job when you're a minister, and trust the process of mature people to do the right thing for you. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say about it. There's possibilities out there. Nothing is set in stone. Nothing is confirmed. We are in the process of continuing the government formation, and trust the process. Don't let yourself be distracted by the noise and false narratives of what people want to do. I prefer that people would use their energy on focusing on what is right, but don't forget that the people also spoke. The people went out and they gave us a message. The message is very clear. What they said in that message is, hey, the people are coming, the people that were coming together. If you actually look at the message of this election is what was done in January is actually being reinforced.
It was
in August.
It was like a kind of silent this election also.
Correct.
Something similar to
Correct.
January.
But the people were consistent with their
Yeah.
messaging in
Yeah.
terms of, if you looked at the 4-party coalition from January, they actually came back
Correct.
in August, and it says, are you going to listen to us now or not?
That didn't surprise you, did it?
It absolutely did not surprise me. It did not. I told you, the only wow factor there was that, oh my gosh, we have someone who earned their seat outright. Kudos to you.
Yeah.
Kudos to you.
With all the backlash that he's been getting for the measures that he's actually been implementing
Absolutely.
here, to bring some kind of stability, not only stability, but bring calm in the community where law enforcement is concerned.
Someone actually also mentioned that to me, in the hindsight, right? Like we're just looking at the results and trying to analyze them, and they said, perhaps people actually felt safe because of what was happening in terms of gun violence and crime and an event that took place.
You realize it has escalated.
Correct, and then everyone was like, "Why is the military coming in?" But maybe people actually needed that calm and sense of security to reinforce our police force that is also out there, and we don't know. I'm gonna ask Doc one day.
Yeah.
I will say,
but they are
what was
short-staffed.
different?
They are short-staffed.
They are significantly short-staffed. They are underpaid. One of the things that I remember talking about during this campaign, which was something that I brought back onto the table, was because of my dialogue with sort of essential workers per se. Let's say, so I was talking about the police. I was talking about teachers. I was talking about nurses, and then someone that works with NGOs. So we have a lot of philanthropy. So a lot of NGOs, nonprofit organizations that do feed, that feed people, that go out and take care of them outside of our healthcare system as well, and just go pick up people, take care of them, take them here and there. And it's not for profit. So it's not for profit. They're just doing this out of the goodness of their heart and community love. And one of them said, "Hey, you were talking about essential workers, but NGO workers are also essential workers." And I said, "You're absolutely correct. Thank you for reminding me that when I talk about essential workers, I think about police, nurses, firemen, teachers, and when you end NGO workers." So I remember what you said. I hope she's listening. And when you look at them, the one constraint that they have is their earnings. And this is why when I was on the campaign trail, I said, hey, there was this awesome policy that came up when I lived in London to help essential workers when it came to housing, since everyone talks about how expensive housing here is. And when we are talking about social housing, affordable housing, I said, well, the easiest way for us to counter that right now is to use this policy that works brilliantly in London, and it's create the system where the private sector will get a tax break for providing reduced pricing or reduced price rents for essential workers, because then that your essential workers will be dispersed around the island, so they're not sort of restricted to go in a particular area where you have a lower rent, for instance. So you have them spread around their island. Your community officers are even better supported. Your nurses, your teachers can live in areas where the schools are that might be very expensive. And I said, this is a brilliant idea for me. And then the feedback that I got publicly was also really, really positive. And I said, but guys, I said this 4 years ago. How come no one listened to me then?
Right.
But then I remembered that I was the new girl on the block,
But were you really ready for the challenge? Because you have some really big shoes to fill. Looking at your aunt, for example.
Yes.
Millicent Weever, and then your dad also was a member of parliament also. And then along comes Ludi. 4 years ago, I remember you sat here, you were like, oh,
I was very nervous.
You were like,
I like to talk.
I really want to do this,
Well,
but how do you feel when you look back 4 years ago today, from where you started to where you are today?
I think my favorite thing is the fact that my voice is being heard, and my voice is the voice of the people, right? So I'm happy that I'm being heard, and they're resonating with what I'm saying. But now my voice has become the voice of the people, and because I'm so much more connected with them, which is what I see in my numbers. I am their voice, and they give me that strength. They give me that courage.
You're
And
strong-minded.
very
strong-minded.
and because I have the support of the people. And I want to say something about that as well, because I usually try to, I really, when I meet new people and I take their number, I said, hey, just to let you know, it'll probably take me somewhere between like 24 to 48 hours to answer you. That was valid up until 4 years ago. Up until last year, right?
Okay.
And then what happened towards January is, it was, I said, I changed it. I said 24 to 72 hours that I will answer you back. And then what happened this election, I think I probably had as many WhatsApp messages as I did votes that I had to get back.
Wow.
So I had to set out
Okay.
a broadcast and be like, I'm trying to answer everyone one by one. And that's what I like to do. I like to answer everyone one by one. There was one supporter and friend that said, it's okay, don't worry about it. She said, but the fact that you want to answer all your
Everybody,
messages one by
right?
one says a lot about you. And I said, that's what people have to remember, is that politics is about people, about being in your community, being connected with your community. And even though you might not see me taking pictures with my community work, I'm out there.
You're taking
I'm
a
out
chapter.
there.
You're
I'm
actually
out
taking
there.
a chapter out of your dad's book.
And it's how I was raised
That's
as
what-
well.
that's
so
what I'm saying. That's
so
what I'm saying.
But it's something that you asked me about my dad, my aunt, and then also my cousin. Don't forget.
yeah.
But
Connie,
our
right.
family has been like that. Our family has been very very loving, very helpful, very nurturing,
Community-minded.
very community minded. Through the cousins, through the aunts and uncles, and this is a big influence in me now, because I have my right hand is to Auntie Millicent, and then my left hand is my dad, in the sense of getting someone to open the door for me. And then initially,
You broke
and
the
then
ceiling?
and then what happened around that
Right.
is that I'm getting now all these new people from all different, like within all the different demographic and sectors and industries, that are so believing in me that they're now my extra tentacles within the community, and they're helping me get into areas that I wasn't in before. And there was such a big shift between January to now, because also, even though it was 7 months and you have that risk of people not being people being disappointed that we had to go back to election, I had a whole new set of supporters that went out even more for me. And again, the most tiring thing about election, about campaigning, is the work that you have to do in between elections. Because if you are not going to remain in contact with your supporters, they will make you feel it in election. And I want to say one story. I will not call this lovely lady's name, but she was a new voter in January. And when I met her through one of my core team, which increased this election 7 months later. She was a part of my team in January, and then introduced me to more people who believed in me this time around. And this lady said, when I asked her for support in January, she said, I'm going to tell you one thing. You're coming by me for support. I like what you said, because last election I also had a lot of opportunities to do like breakfast meetings with people. I had a lot of parties, get-togethers with different pockets. Whereas in this election, I couldn't do it because getting funding in January was easy, but you can't get funding in August 7 months later, when people are like, hey, we supported you and your party in January, and you coming back by us 7 months later to ask for support. Actually, not even 7, because it had to be 6 to 5 months, like 6, I would say 5-6 months later for support. And I have to admit, I was embarrassed to go back to people to ask them for support. And I didn't. I didn't at all. I tried to maybe do 2, and I said, no, I don't want to do it. And I had to call and said, I'm just letting you know, I appreciate what you did. I did send thank you cards last time, for me and the party, because it was all collective. Like when we get donations are go to the party. And then I said, I don't want you to think that I don't appreciate you this election. I said, I just didn't want to go back to ask people for donations that come to our collective pot in the party this election. I said, I'm a little bit embarrassed, but I'm going to go out and keep it fighting. And I said, I made a connection with people last time, and I have to just do the one-to-one. But right. it was very, I said the right word. It was very embarrassing to have to go back to people again to say.
After you just came out of the election.
Correct.
In
it was very hard, and I didn't do it.
I'm doing your mom a disservice this morning also, because I'm mentioning your dad, your aunt, and I'm just mentioning your family side of your dad, which somewhere while I was while you were talking, I heard someone say, Lady Grace, this is Felix Swazi's granddaughter.
It is Felix Swazi's granddaughter, and if my mom is tuning in, mommy, I know that when you have a dad girl, is dad girl, right? Mm-hmm. But my mom, and I'm going to tell the whole public what her nickname is. Her nickname is Axelrod. If anyone knows who Axelrod is, that is her nickname. My mom wasn't really so much of a fan of me going into politics because of her experience with her dad, Felix Swazi. It was not. She didn't like the nastiness that kind of comes with it. I'm sorry to say that word. There's
But it is. That's exactly what it is.
It comes with the territory, which is why I always tell people you have to be very strong. You have to have very thick skin.
Oh yeah.
Because when stories are being created about you, you need to be secure with who you are as a person, so that you're not constantly defending yourself. Because if you're secure with who you are as a person, then when people start making up rumors about you, it doesn't trigger you. And they can go and what happens a lot in politics is you get character assassinations, especially when you don't do what potentially your party might want you to do. You get character assassinations, or you get what I experienced when I was a minister. They fire you when they try to fire you and even though it never came on the floor of parliament, the rumblings was there because the MPs at the time told me about it. When you don't do what they want you to do, you have that risk. And for me, I said, well, good luck explaining to people why you fired me when I didn't want to do what you didn't want, what you wanted me to do. But this part is why, my mom didn't want it. But every time we get down to the wire of campaign time, my mom shows us exactly why she's this political strategist, a political thinker. We call her. My sister gave her the name of Axelrod. So if anyone knows the political commentator and strategist, basically David Axelrod. So we call her Axelrod, and then we call one of my cousins Axelrod Jr. But I won't call her name on air today.
Okay, all right.
But yeah. So so mom, dad, I'm going to take this opportunity to tell everyone that was there to help me. I won't call your names on air, all of you, but I wouldn't be here without that team that helps support me. And they went out really hard. And this election had some struggles in the sense of the fact that I really was disappointed that we had to do this again. And I didn't even recover from all the work that I did in January in terms of rest. And then I had to go back out again. And boy, oh boy, when I got this boost of extra help, and I will name there's about 4 persons that came into the support group, the campaign support team, that were working on their own, working unknown to anyone else. And I really appreciate them because they made a difference this election in boosting my morale, in going out to new persons and basically challenging me to go out even more to the areas that I may have missed the first time around. And I have to say thank you to all of you for everything that you have done. But before we went on to that topic, we were talking about the members of my family that had been there before as well. And then we forgot to mention my cousin Cornelius, because he was also there, but they were very, very instrumental and helpful, and I really appreciate all the work that they have done. But we were talking about something before we went to my mom, and I can't remember what it was we were talking about.
Neither can I. We're just talking about basically your family, their involvement.
I remember the story.
Right.
The story of the lady. The story of the lady. And I have to say this because it's a story that the public needs to hear. So when the lady said, if I'm going to put my support behind you, I want you to make sure you keep in touch with me. So I said, I usually do. I said, this is why I don't really have a lot of time sometimes for my family, and I try to change it this election cycle so that I have more balance in my personal life, because I don't come by you only before election and then come by you after election to thank you. I try to keep my relationship with you year round. And that's the most important part of campaigning and being a politician and being successful. So this lady, when I came back by her, kept in touch with her, and I came back and she said, what did I tell you in January when you came to ask me for support? I said, to always keep in touch. She said, yes, but you didn't. I said, oh my God, I felt so hurt. So like someone hit me, right? And I took my phone and I said, no, I don't believe you, because I called her first to come. I said, I can't believe this. I can't believe it. I know I keep in touch with my people. So that I looked at my phone and I said, I did keep in touch with her. You know,
like she never responded.
I kept in touch with her, and the communication was there until 3 months before, when I saw sort of unreceived. Like, so I sent messages and had calls, but then when I looked at it in detail, it was not received.
Okay.
And so I said, did you change your number? Because it came from an unknown number, right? So so the person called me. Actually, this is what happened. The person called me with an unknown number, and I picked up and I said, did you change your number? What are you calling me from? She said, I did. I said, so how you want me to keep in touch with you from 3 months before? So and then I ended up picking her up to vote, and kept in touch with her, dropped her home, and then she called me back and she said, man, she said, I see, you are so persistent. She said, you don't give up. She said, you came to get me, you waited for me. She said, you're persistent. This is why I admire you and why I gave you back my vote, because you're a persistent person. You stick to something when you say you're going to do it. And I said, I know, but so you take back what you said? She said, yes, I see it. She said, I saw her mistake.
Okay, good. Now, as Minister of TIAT, we saw that this was 4 years ago. No, not that far back. Well, anyhow, during your tenure as Minister of TIAT, you actually were basically criticized for for shutting down the District 721 nightclub, and then we see today on the papers, on the front page of the papers, where again the same location after it was completely torn down, not torn down, burnt down actually, where you actually reside next door to this building, that it was burnt down, that it has reopened now, and then we see again today that where the police assisted the inspectorates to shut it down again. Do you have any comments on that?
Absolutely. I just told you earlier on that if you're going to be in government, you have to have thick skin. Now, the thicker skin needs to come in when you realize that if you're dealing with a rule-breaking troublemaker as a business owner in a neighborhood, if you happen to live nearby, I'm going to be the easiest target. I'm going to be the easiest target for that person to attack when I'm in a position of authority with influence over it. And what I consider that is the relationship with the entity started to make sure that the businesses were up to par in terms of their licensing. There was more than one, I would say somewhere between 5 to 7 businesses within the property that were not operating according to the legal means, in the sense of the proper licensing, or not operating within their the conditions of their license. Now, what I will say about that is I'm so very glad that I am not actively there. I have been a nomad since I was burnt out of my house. I've been a nomad, staying with by my parents in town, and it's something that sort of how do you say it? My life has been I guess in a sense of disrupted. That's the word I'm looking for. My life has been disrupted because that is where I live. But the saving grace right now, hearing that today, is the fact that when persons were trying to accuse me because of who they were politically affiliated with and who also had businesses in there, when they were trying to accuse me of being the problem, the reason that my votes went up so much in Simpson Bay back in January 2024 was because the Simpson Bay people that were complaining, the Simpson Bay and Cole Bay people that were complaining, I actually listened to them. I took their calls at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. They didn't have to wake me up because I couldn't sleep. And I did something to listen to the masses. That's why we're in government, to facilitate for our community, our citizens. And this is why my votes are so high in an area that was not my home beforehand. And, people came back to me about it actually before this business opened and said, are you going to continue working on the noise pollution legislation? And I said, it's part of the living environment legislation amendments that we are working on. And what I can say is this: if you are going to be in St. Martin, whether you are from here or moved here, and you are going to continuously disrupt an entire neighborhood, be disrespectful, have grandmothers giving their children, their grandkids pills to sleep at night, have people calling from across the lagoon because their child can't sleep because of the dun dun dun
The
bass.
noise,
And if
basically.
you're going to consistently break the rules of what you have been given in order to be operational or be operating as a business here, then what I say to that is do it somewhere else. We have rules in place. St. Martin has been accused of not enforcing rules that benefit our persons living here on the island, whether that is noise pollution, whether that is sewage pollution, whether that is the way we handle our trash, whether that is the way that we have, safe roads. We have to do the work for the people, Grace. And what I will not tolerate, what I don't think that anybody in our government should ever tolerate, is allowing persons to break the rules that disenfranchise an entire neighborhood. Who do you think you are? Respect the rules, because my life was threatened from that same person. I had 5 people follow me into my yard. I had character assassination from that same entity. I have persons telling me everything that's happening there, but we have authorities in place to check that the people that work in your places are legally employed, to check that you are legally paying your taxes, to check that you are making your contributions to the system, to check that you're paying your license fees, to check that you're paying your GB, and to check that you're not disrupting an entire neighborhood for your own selfish means. It was never anything to do with me. You know what I was doing as the minister of Tayat? I was doing the work of the people. And I will always continue to do the work of the people. And it's a message that goes out to anybody, anywhere on the island. Do what's right for the island. Don't be a pain in the butt. Because we're now empowered. Our country's empowered because the citizens now are empowered to know that we are listening to you. We are listening to your complaints. I remember when I was minister, I started a complaint line, a complaint email address, so that we can start writing down and recording, so that we have a proper paper trail when you would have to go to court. So don't break the rules. Think of your neighbor. Don't be selfish. And that's the message that has to go out. And
but the controls have to be consistent also.
The controls have to be
consistent.
consistent.
Not just nightclubs, but supermarkets, gas stations,
mechanics. And there's one lady, I hope she's listening in, that sends stuff. And I feel like, seeing this lady last week when I went to the movie theater to try to calm down with some friends, just to get a little break. She said, "Are you still continuing with the noise pollution?" I said, "I absolutely am." I said, "I really absolutely am." She said, "Okay." And then, she sent me back all of these articles again. And I said, "I'm still working on it." So the persons out there that I impacted and that felt like, wow, someone's listening to us, I'm still doing the work. And I really appreciate you for bringing it up. I think the fact that I ran into you last Saturday was kind of a preview of what was happening this week. And my only saving grace is that I wasn't there, because what the people said was that it's because I was there. I was right next door, and I was calling the police. I said, no, it's an entire neighborhood that's doing it. Right. An entire neighborhood is calling the Ministry of Tayat. An entire neighborhood is calling the Ministry of Justice. An entire neighborhood probably eventually will be calling the Ministry of Rami to make sure that everything is legal, so that they don't burn the neighbors out again like me, So right. I'm really proud of the inspectors across all of the ministries that go out there and do the work. And even a perfect example would be, I had a lot of pictures sent to me from people with the boardwalk, how dirty the boardwalk was. And I sent it out to the Minister of Tayat, I sent it out to the Minister of Rami, and I said, this is what I do. I'm a pain in the butt. If the citizens complain to me, I'm gonna put the pressure on to the ministries. And then within 24 hours, it was handled.
All right. MP, I got to let you go because you have a meeting at 11 o'clock this morning. It's already 10 o'clock.
GB.
And I was looking, Yes.
So
that's this morning at 11 o'clock, where the Parliament will meet to discuss. The Prime Minister actually also will be
Prime Minister's
present.
coming in, yes. And
Right.
if, for the public tuning in, it's the continuation of our Central Committee meeting that we had with GB. And I'm pretty sure what some of the things that the Prime Minister said, maybe in press briefing, will be reiterated today. And I look forward to that meeting, because I just want to make sure that the $1 million that was sent out is actually, we're getting something for it. Not the containers that are here now, but the one that was sent out very early in the game, that the right process was done, and the money was safely handled and guaranteed, and that we get something in return for it.
Yeah, because this morning also I was reading in Curacao that there actually will be a 20% reduction in their electricity tariffs because they're setting up a windmill farm next year.
And that's one of the dialogues we have to have here, our continued dialogue for renewable energy, because everyone would always eliminate it and say, oh, we're in a hurricane belt, so we can't have that. But those things are detachable. And we really need to get like rocking on that, get moving on it. And I believe that the unfortunate events of load shedding is going to be a big kick into government to get that pushing forward even more.
All right. MP, I want to thank you so much for coming in this morning, an opportunity for you to thank all your voters, your supporters, all 690 of them. Before we get out of here.
So, I whenever I would talk to anyone about, are you going to listen to the voters? Are you going to listen to the 689 voters? What the faith that they put in me, the faith, like their belief in me, their confidence in me, because I say 689 because I voted for myself.
For yourself. That's what I was about to say, right?
So yeah. I really want to tell everyone, thank you for coming out to vote, everybody. Thank you to those persons, the 689 persons that voted for me. Thank you to everyone that helped me along this process. And all the radio stations that let us come on, everybody involved in this whole campaign process, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks to you once again.
Happy weekend.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Radio listeners.